Hello class and welcome to another exciting facilitation for this semester. I am Dr. Annie George, Department of Public Health, Faculty of Health Sciences, and will be your guide. Hope we all enjoy it. Thank you. So on today's lesson, Introduction to Biostatistics, PHS 210, we'll be looking at topic 2, data and sources of data. At the end of this lesson, we're expected to know what data means, understand also the sources of data. So what is data? Data is what we call information, either in form of words or in numbers. It can also be called set of values, observational units. It can also be counts. It can also be measurements, like when you measure blood pressure, when you measure temperature. They are all values that you get. So such values is an information that tells you something. That is what is called data. In the next slide, I want you to look at it, at the images that you see in the next slide, while we take an activity. Activity 1, what do you understand as raw data? Just take some time and look at the images while we'll talk some more. Okay, on this particular activity, on this slide, you have health workers in noun. You have green showing nurses, you have yellow showing doctors, you have red showing pharmacists, and you have light yellow showing radiographers. So on this particular chart called pie chart, you can see the percentages of each of the health workers and the volume, or if I will call it the size on the pie chart, what they represent. We will come back to that so that you have an idea of what I'm talking about when we discuss raw data. So look at the next slide now and let's see. So this slide talks about population of men, women and children in National Open University of Nigeria in 10 years interval from 1990 to 2020. So if you look at here, you will see children are in red, women yellow, and men in green. In 1990, you can see the population of men, women, and children, and then after 10 years in 2000, you can see, what they represent in terms of values, and then you can see also in 2010, and then in 2020. So that brings us back to that activity, raw data. So what is raw data? Raw data, are a set of values that are not yet statistically manipulated, still in its natural form. How do we mean? You go out there, you get values, like in those pictures that I showed you, you get values of population of men, women, and children in National Open University of Nigeria. Such values that you get, and you have not actually manipulated those values. You have not analyzed them statistically, or use the values that you get in those raw forms as you get them. You have not actually tampered with them. That is what is called raw data. By the time you manipulate it, you analyze it, and then you begin to look at errors in your findings and the values you get as you analyze them, it is no longer a raw data. Now, looking at this particular slide, you see I'm trying to give you pictures, graphical pictures or chart representation of figures, like a way of introducing you to what you finally see when we begin to go into details in biostatistics, so that when you start to see all these diagrams, pictures, charts, and all that, you get accustomed to them already. So this one looks like an exercise variation in non-community in the last 4 years, from 2017 to 2020. Exercise variation in non-community among children, men, and women. You can see the women in red. There hasn't been any exercise variation from 2017 to 2020. It's been steady. But for that of men, which follows from 80%, it fluctuated down to 60% in 2019, and then went further down to maybe let's say 55% in 2020. That of children on green started in 2017 from 50%, and then came down to somewhat less than 30% in 2018, went up again to 40% in 2019, and then came down in 2020 down to less than 30%. That's just like a pictorial chart of what exercise variation in non-community is. These are things you will see and you continue to see in biostatistics and analysis of data and representation of data. In the next slide, we'll have an activity, and let's take some time and see. So activity 2, what are sources of data? So data sources can be routine sources of data, and it can be ad hoc sources of data. But for routine sources of data, they are usually called secondary data, and this includes records or official publications of government. What we call vital statistics is part of such routine sources. Like births, deaths, marriages, migration are all parts. Then census, figures from census are usually routine sources. Data from hospitals like patient admissions, outpatients, pre-employment and routine medicals. Information you get from all that are actually routine sources of data. Disease surveillance in public health departments, Ministry of Health, an agency of Ministry of Health like Nigerian Center for Disease Control, notification records, National Primary Healthcare Development Agency, COVID-19 vaccination records. They are all sources of data, and they are called secondary data. So the ad hoc sources are usually called primary source of data. It's de novo kind of data generation. Is usually a planned, supervised, and controlled source of data, like when you go for field surveys, laboratory research work, experiments. They are all primary sources of data. So in summary, in this particular discussion, this topic 2, we've learned the meaning of data as information, count, or measurement. We've also understood what primary and secondary sources of data with examples are. And then in the next lecture, we will discuss data collection methods. Thank you for listening.